Hello everyone, my name is Ashish and welcome to the Xadmin channel. So today in this lecture we are going to discuss about the Mokuto framework and then we will see how to write the unit testing for your application by using the Mokuto framework. So guys, in the last lecture or the previous lecture, already I have uploaded a lecture on like how to write the unit testing for your Spring controller using the mock MVC of a Mokuto framework. So today in this lecture, I will show you how to write like a service class unit test by using a Mokuto framework. So now guys, let's discuss like what is a Mokuto. So a Mokuto is an open source testing framework. So for Java based application for writing the unit testing for your like the functionality or the logic you have added to your application. So now let's understand why we write test cases. So we write the test cases to check whether our implemented functionality or the logic we have added to our application is working according to our need or not. So like basically we write the test case to avoid any bug or the problem at the production environment or at the production time. So like by writing the test cases beforehand itself, only we check the functionality is whether working according to our requirement or not, right? So now guys, let's discuss that why we need Mokuto framework to write a test case for our functionality we have added and what are the advantages of using the like the Mokuto framework. So guys, here if you will see that every web application has some layers and the layers are like the controller layer and the service layer and the repository layer and then it hit the database, right? So guys, let's say that if I'm writing a test case without the Mokuto framework, and let's say that I'm writing the test case of my controller class without a Mokuto framework. So here, firstly, it will hit the controller endpoint, then it will hit the service layer, then it will go to the repository, and then it will hit the database, right? So guys, here you can see that for the test purpose, we are hitting the database and like it is like a, not a good approach or a idea to hit the database multiple times for the test purpose also. So to avoid this issue, the Mokuto framework is introduced. So here, guys, what does the Mokuto is doing here? So here it will like mock the repository data. It means that it will create the dummy object or the dummy data for our real data to do the testing, right? So it means that first the controller endpoint will be hit and then it will go to the service layer, but here it will not go to the repository or it will hit the database. But after service layer, Mokuto will mock the data or it will create some dummy data to test our functionality which we have added to our application, right? So mocking means here creating the dummy data or the clone object of the real object. So in this way, it will avoid hitting the database for our testing purpose. So guys, this is the reason of bringing the Mokuto framework in picture to avoid the like, uh, like to avoid the hitting of the database multiple times for testing purpose also. So all right. So now guys, we are going to write a like the JUnit test cases for our service class, and for that I will create a Spring Boot application by using a Spring Initializer. So here in my browser, you can see that I have opened a Spring Initializer website, and this is our Maven project, and this is our Java language and Spring Boot 2.3.4 I am using. So now let's change group name. It's xadmin, and now let's change the artifact name or the project name as Mokuto, and the packaging as jar I will use and the Java 8 I will use for this project. So let's add some dependencies. So here I will add Spring Wave, then I will add like Spring Boot Dev tool so that my application automatically get like run after if I do any changes in my application. And I will use like MySQL driver for my database. And then I will add Spring Data JPA for my repository purpose for the CRUD operations, right? So these are the four dependencies I have added to my application. So now let's like generate it and let's save this. So here it is going to download in a GIF format. So we need to extract it. So let's go to the folder and like extract it here. So now we are going to import this project inside my Eclipse. So let's import this. So go to the folder, select the project, open it, and finish this. So guys, here you can see that we have successfully imported our the Mokuto application inside my Eclipse. And now here, I'm going to create all the packages which I'm going to use for this project inside my Java folder. So let me copy this package first. So go to the Java folder and here let's create some packages. So first package I will create as model, and inside the model package I will create model class. So let's add another package, let's say with the name service. So here inside the service class I'm going to add my service class, and then let's add one more package with the name, let's say controller, and inside the controller package I'm going to add my controller class. So let's add one more package, DAO package, and inside the DAO package I'm going to create my DAO layer. So here I'm going to create one the entity class. So entity class I'm going to use the user class as I have used in my the previous lecture for unit testing of my controller. So guys, the same class I will use for writing the unit testing for our service class. So user is my the entity class. So this is my entity class. So here I will annotate this with the entity annotation. And the user class has three attributes: ID and the name of a string type, and the role is also of a string type. So these are the three attributes I have added, and here I want that ID should be my primary key. So at the rate ID annotation, and here I want that ID should be the auto generated. So here I am using generated value. So let's add constructors for this class. Let's add the default constructor. Now let's add the getter and the setter method also. Select all and then finish. So guys, here you can see that I have created an entity class with the name user, and here it contains the three attributes: ID, name, and the role, right? And the ID is like a primary key and ID is auto generated, right? So now I am going to write a DAO layer. So here I'm going to create one repository interface. It will be like user repository. So it will extends JPU repository, and here I'm using a JPU repository for the CRUD operations. So here in the generic we need to pass the entity class. So user is the entity class, and in the ID section we need to pass the data type of my primary key. So ID is the primary key and the data type is like integer. So here we need to mention integer. So guys, we have created one our repository user repository interface, and it is extending a JPU repository, and here the JPU repository will provide all the CRUD operations. Now let's add a service class. So user service. So this is my service class. So I will mark this class with a service annotation. And here inside this class, I'm going to create the the method to add a new user to the database and to delete a user from the database, and to get all the users present inside my database. So before that writing that functionality, let me inject user repository to this service class. User repository. So annotate this with a auto var. And now I'm going to create a method to save a new user object to my MySQL database. So public, and here I will keep this as a user. Save user. So repository. So we have a method like the save method of a JPO repository, and like its argument, it is taking as an entity. So it means that here we need to pass some user object. So here let's take user. So we will pass this user here, right? So here it is going to like save the new user, and here it is going to return that user also, right? So this is the method to save a new object to the database. Now let's write another method to get all the users from the database. So like it will return in a list format. So that's why I will use list here as a return type. Get all users. So repository dot we have a method like something called as find all method. So find all method is going to return a list of user objects which are available inside our database, right? So here we need to return it. So let me add return statement. Now let's add one more like method to just delete some user from the database. So public, and the return type I will keep this as a void delete user by id. So here we need to pass some id. So repository dot we have a method with the call something delete by id, and here it is taking argument as integer id. So here we need to pass this id, right? And here it is like void, so we don't need to like write a return statement. So guys, I have written the service class, and here I have written the three method like the save method to save a new user object to the database, and a get all user method to get all the user available in the database, and then a delete user by id to delete any particular user from the database. So now let's write a controller class quickly. So user controller. So inside the controller class, I'm going to create my REST endpoints. So make this as a REST controller by annotating REST controller. And here I want to provide some like the root URL. So for that, I will annotate with the request mapping, and then I will pass the root URL as, let's say, user. Now I'm going to create the endpoint. So guys, before that, I'm going to inject my user service inside my user controller. So let's inject user service here. Annotate with AutoWire. Now let's create the endpoint to save a new object to the database. Right. So here the return type was user. Save method. So here it is going to return like service. So we have a method inside our service class as a save user, and here it is taking an argument of a user. So here we need to create the user object or the reference variable, right? And here guys, we are taking this user from the request header body. So we need to provide a request body annotation so that it will take this user object from the request header. And here I want that this method should be called if I am using by the http post method. So that's why I'm mapping with the post mapping. And here let's provide some URL, let's say add user, right? And here request body and return type is service dot save user. So it is going to save this user object to my database. So now let's write another endpoint for like getting all the object available in my database. So this will be returning as a list of users, get all users. So return service dot, we have created a method just now like get all user, right? So it is going to return the list of the user available in my database table, right? So these are the two method. And now let me add this get mapping here because I want that this endpoint should be called by the http get method. And here let me add the URL, right? So in the same way, I'm going to create one more endpoint for deleting particular user according to the ID. So here the return type is like void. So delete user, and here we need to pass ID. So here it will call service dot, we have a method we have created like delete by user by ID. So it is taking the integer ID, right? And here I want that this delete endpoint should call with the http delete method. So for that I will mark this with a delete mapping method, and here I will provide some URL like delete user, and here I will provide the ID in my URL. So it is going to take this ID from the URL. So for that I have to mention a path variable annotation in the argument of my delete user with the ID variable, so that it is going to take this ID from the URL ID, right? And then it is going to pass to my delete user by ID method, and here my user will get deleted from the database according to this ID. So here we have created the three endpoints, right? So let me save this, and now let's check quickly whether these endpoints are working or not, and then after that I will show you how to write the unit test case for the service class. So let me run my application and let's check whether this is working or not. Okay, so guys, we are left with the one thing, guys. We have to like provide the property for our MySQL, because here we are using MySQL database, right? So let's go to our repository, and I forgot to add the properties for my MySQL driver. So guys, already I have saved the template. So let me copy and paste it to save time. So guys, here is my class name like com.mysql JDBC driver, and this is the URL JDBC MySQL localhost, and this is the port number, the default port number I'm using, and this is the schema name already I created in my MySQL database, right? So Mokuto is my like the schema name or the database name. So this is the root username, password is this, and I want to show SQL here, and this is the Hibernate DDL auto as update I have done, and this is the dialect, right? So these are the properties I have added in my property file. So let me save it. So here you can see that my application will already like start automatically. It is not starting. All right, no problem. Let me start it by myself. So now it should start, because before I was like forget to add my SQL properties. So guys, it has started on port number 80880, right? So now if you will see in my controller, so my root UR is like user, and for the add user is my like. So let's go to the postman and let's check that whether these endpoints are working or not. Add user, and this is the post method. Inside body I have written like Ashish, and this is the user role. All right, and here guys, ID is like auto generated. So here I'm not passing the ID in the JSON format of my request header, right? So this is my like the JSON format, and here I'm passing the user's name and the roll number only. So this is the post method and user add user. So let me hit the send button. So you can see that we got the response as the user response as the ID one, name Ashish, and the role is like user. So let me add one more user object. So let's make the name as xadmin and the user I will make as admin, right? So this will the post method. Yeah, let's hit it again. So here you can see that we added with the ID 2 and the name xadmin. So now let's check our get endpoint is working fine or not. So we have the endpoint get users, I hope. Yeah. So let's hit it and let's see that whether we are getting response or not. So guys, you can see that we got the two response. It means two object has been added to our database. So now let's check so now guys, I will show you in my MySQL workbench also. So this is my Mokuto database or the schema. So let me refresh it. And here in the table part, you can see that we have created one user, and here you can see that we have the two like the ID 1 and 2 and the data, right? So now I want to delete any ID to check my the delete is working or not. So let me add delete, and this is like delete user, I believe. Delete user, and here we need to pass ID. So here I want to delete the ID 1. All right, so pass it here 1, and this is the delete http method. So let's hit the send button. So guys, here we are getting 200. Okay, it means that we are able to delete fine. And guys, all right, and guys, in the like the endpoint, you can see that the delete method has the void return type, so that's why it does not return any response here. So now let's check that whether we are able to delete it or not by calling get users. Let's hit the send button. So guys, you can see that only I am getting one object with the ID 2, name is xadmin, and the role is admin, right? So guys, it means that our endpoints are working fine. So now it's time to like write the test case for our service class by using the Mokuto framework. So for that, what I will do, I will go to my test section, source, test, and Java. Right inside this folder, we have one like the Mokuto application test.class. And here, the first of all, I will add annotation run with. So this is the annotation is like coming from the JUnit. So let me import this. So add JUnit 4 library to my build class path. All right, and then what I will do, I will run with like the spring runner dot class, right? And now guys, I'm going to inject my service class firstly. So guys, I'm going to inject my service class and also my user repository. So let me inject service class first. User service, mark this with the auto add annotation, right? And now I am going to like inject my the user repository. Private user repository, right? And all right, and guys, here I want to inject the user repository, and here I want to mock the repository. So that I have to mock this with the annotation mock bean. So guys, the mock bean is going to mock this or like inject this repository here, and guys, it is going to mock this repository. So for that purpose, I have marked this with the mock bean. All right. So now, guys, let's write the test case for all the methods I have implemented in my service class one by one. So first I will write the test case for my get method. So this is my like the get method, get all users. So let me write the test case for the get all user method inside this. So let me, so it is coming from the JUpiter. So I have to make this test coming from the JUnit, right? Package. And let's change this name, public void get users test method. All right. And guys, inside this I'm going to write my test logic. So guys, here I'm going to call a method, and like we have a when method inside, and all right, and guys, it is a static method predefined in my like the Mokuto. So here I'm not getting the package, I don't know. So let me import it by myself. Import, so this is the static method inside my Mokuto. So org dot Mokuto, yeah, this is fine. Mokuto, then we have to call Mokuto class Mokuto dot when. Yeah, now it's get imported to this class, and now we will get like the when method. And guys, inside this we have to do a method call. So for that, what I will do, so for that, here I will do a repository call. So repository dot find all method. So guys, here it is going to call my find all method of my repository class. And then guys, in my return, and then guys, it is going to return like, so for that I will use here the then return. And guys, here I want to mock the value. It means that I will provide the dummy value to test my functionality so that it will not hit the database, right? So let me create a dummy and let me mock this. So we can use a stream.for method, and inside this I'm going to create the user class object, and inside the constructor I will pass the id as 101, and here the name I will pass as something Ashish, and the roll number I will pass sorry, and the role I will pass as something, it is like user. All right. And then I will do a collect method, and inside the collect method we have a collectors class of my stream to convert it to a to list. So here I will call to list, right? So guys, here I am like mocking my like the dummy object here. I think I have deleted one extra, yeah. All right. So guys, it is going to call when a repository dot find all method will be called. Then it is going to return this like data. It is not going to hit the database. It is going to return this data from here. And then guys, here, so guys, so now guys, I need to compare the values with the asset. So let me use the asset here. Asset equal. All right. So here I want to compare with the size. So here the all right. So guys, here expected I will pass 1, and here in the actual I will pass like the users. Like we have so we have to call like the service dot get all method, or the get all users method, and there I will find the size here, right? So guys, here it is going to like compare the value, the size of the data we are returning from here, and then guys it will, if the size is 1, then guys it is going to pass this the test, or otherwise it will going to fail this test. So let me show you by testing this get user test first. So make this as a public class Mokuto application test. Save this. So let's run the test case, run as JUnit test. All right, and guys, here you can see that we are getting a green here. So it means that we have successfully passed our test. And guys, this is the get user test. And guys, it is just like like mock the data from here, and then we are calling service dot get all user, and here we are checking the size, and here we have provided the size. So let me add here the size 2, and let's check that whether we are getting, it means that whether we are passing or not. So here I have mentioned 2. Now let's again run this. All right, and guys, here guys you can see that we are failed because the size is like 1 and we are expecting 2. So our here the test case failed, right? So let me change it to 1. And here in the error part you can see that it is expecting 2 but it was 1, right? So let me change this to 1. And now guys, I am going to write the another test class for the next like the method in the service class, that is for the add method or a save user method. Let's go to our Mockito application, and here I am going to write one more test class for adding the method, right? So this is like public void add user test, right? All right, so guys, here we have to mark this method with the at the rate test with the org.junit package, right? And now here guys, I'm going to create the user object. So user equals to new user. All right, and here I'm going to pass the values, let's say 201 as the ID, and the name I will pass as something like Bhagat, and the role I will pass as the super user, something super, or super admin. Let me add super admin as a role, right? So now I will use the same as the when method. All right, and when is the static method of the like the Mokuto, and here when it is going to call, when we are calling repository dot method, like we have a method like save method, right? So in the save method, and guys, here it is taking the entity as a user object, right? And after that guys, we need to call then return. So guys, here we need to mock the data. So guys, here we need to mock the data, or it means that we have to provide some dummy data so that it will not hit the database, right? So for that we have to provide some like the dummy data. So here we will provide user as the dummy data. And now it's time to compare. So for comparing, I will use same the asset equal method, and here as the expected. And guys, in the service class you can see that in the save user method we are getting the user as a like a response return type. So here we are expecting user, right? So that's why I will provide user, and the actual, for the actual I will do call service dot, we have a method I have added method with the name, I think save, right? Yeah, it's like a save user method I have added to my service class. So here guys, it is going to compare the user value and guys it is going to compare the save user. So all right, so guys, in this guys you can see that it is just returning the user object which we are saving, and here we are just comparing with the expected value as user. Now let's write another uh, uh, like the test for the like deleting. So public void delete user, and here we will do right. And guy all right, and guys here you can see that in my service class the delete method has a return type as void. So here we cannot use the van or the asset value, right? So here it is like returning the value as the void. So guys, here it is not returning anything. So now let's see how to test a unit test a method which is like which return type is like void. So for that guys, what we can do, so first of all let me create the user object. All right, and now guys what we can do, we can just simply call a service method, a service repository service class method as a delete user by id. And here we need to pass the id. So user dot get id, we can take the id from the getter method of the user. And then guys here what we can do, here we can just call a verify that whether this method is called or not. So guys here we are going to verify that whether this method is called or not. So guys, verify is like the static method, and here I am not getting the verify. So again I have to add this. So this is the when. So let me add a verify here. Verify. Yeah. Static org and verify. So v is like in a small letter, right? So now guys we have imported our verify static method here. So yeah, so now we got, and guys here after the verify we need to pass our like the mock. So for that guys what I will do, I will pass this repository. I will pass this repository, and guys here we have a time method to check the like the calls the. All right, so guys here we need to import this also as a static times, right? So now guys we have a time method to check that how many times this method is called. So guys here I will put as like one to check that I want that the delete method should be invoked only one time. And then we will call the delete by id, and then inside this we will pass the id by user dot get id, right? So here guys it is going to check, and guys it is going to verify that how many times the delete method has been called. All right, and guys if this is true, then guys we will pass our like test, or otherwise we will get a false. So for that let me add a test annotation, and like it is coming from org.junit. Right. So guys, we have completed our test unit for all the three methods available in my service class. And this is the get method. And guys, I have shown you that the get method. So guys, it is calling like when repository.findAll method is called. And then guys, it is returning the dummy or the mock object I have provided here, like the users object I have provided here. And then guys, we are doing a compare by the size of the user. So guys here we are calling service.get you all user. So guys here it is going to return this data. So guys here it is not going to call our database, but it is going to return this data. And here we have provided one as the expected value, and this is the actual size, right? So guys if this is equal, then here it is really pass. And guys in the same way, in the add user test method, I have just created one user object, a dummy user object, and then guys I have called like repository.save method. And then all right, and then guys it is like returning this user object. All right, so guys here it is not going to invoke my database. and then we are checking with this, like because guys the save user method is returning the user object directly. So here we are just doing a checking here that user is expected user is equal to the actual user from here, right? So if this is equal, then it will pass our test. So guys, same way we are doing for the delete user. And guys, here you can see that we have a void return type for the delete method. So here we cannot use the when or the asset all, right? So for that, what we have done here, just we are checking the number of times the delete method is called. So for that, firstly, we have created one user object, a dummy user object, and then we have called service.delete user by id method, and here we have passed this id. And now just we are checking that how many times the delete method has been called by using the verify static method of a Mokuto. And here we are passing repository, and then the times method, we have the times method to check the number of times the method is invoked. And here we are calling a delete by id method. So guys, it is going to call the delete method, and guys here it is going to check that whether the matching is done or not. So guys, in the same way we will get the result of my unit testing. So now let guys test that whether this testing is working or not. And guys, already I have shown you about the test user uh, like this method. So guys, in this I will show you that the add user and delete user. So now package, so let me run this. All right, and guys, you can see that we got a green here. It means that our all test is passing fine. Add user test, get users by data, and delete users. All right. So this is how we write a Mokuto for our unit testing. And guys, here it is not like calling our database. So guys, how we can check that whether it is not invoking our database? So first of all, let's go to our MySQL and let's check that what are the data available in my user table. So guys, you can see that we have the name as xadmin and the role as admin, right? So now let's go to our Eclipse, and in my service layer, when we are like adding or like when we are getting all user data here, guys, we can just put one, like guys here we can put just put one like the SOP part, and guys we can check that what we are getting the data from here, right? So let me add some SOP part, system.out.println. And here guys, what I can do, I can simply call this method a procedure.find all method, and guys it is going to print our data, right? So let's add some dummy string here, data from database something, right? And now we are going to check that whether we are getting this data from our database or from our dummy object, or from our mock object which we have assigned here inside my like the get user data. All right. So guys here you can see that I have mocked with the assist name and the role as users, and the id is 101. So let me run this. Run as JUnit test, save. All right, so guys, our test has been passed, and here we are getting some data, but we are not able to see it because we don't have provided any like toString method here. So let me add quickly a toString method so that it will be easy to see. Source toString ID name roll number, right? Add it. Save this. Let's run this unit test. So guys, here you can see that now I am getting the data as the data from database, and guys, you can see that I am not getting the data from the database, right? So guys, I am getting the data, the mock data which I have entered, right? So guys, in this way, guys, we can say that with the like the Mokuto, we are not hitting the database. Actually, we are getting the data by the data which we have mocked, right? And guys, we are testing with the mock data, not by the like the database. So guys, in the same way, guys, if you will see that add user, so guys, the add user has the data, like we are adding like the Bhagat name and the role as super admin. So guys, if it had hit the database, then guys, this data should be present inside our like the database also, na. So let me check it and let me fetch the user. And guys, you can see that still we are getting only one data here. It means that, guys, it is not like invoking our or hitting our database to test purpose by the help of Mokuto. It is just taking the data from the data which we have mocked here, right? Guys, hey, all right, guys, in this lecture, I have shown you how to write the unit testing for your service class by using the Mokuto. And guys, also I have shown you the advantage of using the Mokuto, because guys, it does not hit the database. It take the data from your the mock data, and it tests your like the functionality or the logic you have added, right? So thank you and have a nice day. See you in the next lecture.